All right. So I think mostly I just wanted to have an opportunity to unpack our experiences this semester, spend the first bit sort of sharing a clear high point that you're riding on in your work in your online classroom this semester. And
Hmm.
then I don't want to put anybody on the spot to talk about a struggle or a low point, but if you think that that would be beneficial to chat about and collaborate over, um, there's space for that as well. And Shelly's already kind of asked a question in that arena, so we'll get to her question in a minute. So, Jim and Tony, what was a high point um, this semester teaching online that you can think of?
I don't know. I had really good retention in my 202,
Sweet.
so I'm happy about that. The 202 went pretty well. Yeah, it's funny because I did the 100 hybrid and the 202 fully online, and
Yeah.
those are just two completely different beasts in
Yeah.
terms of the folks in the room. So I think I'm ending with 17 in the hybrid,
Okay.
something like, I don't know, maybe 21 or 22 in the online, and that happened within the first week. So it was like everyone stayed,
That's awesome.
and
That's
I don't think that has a lot to do with me, but I think it speaks to just kind of, I don't know what it speaks to, but it was cool that it happened.
yeah.
So
Well, and I think it's interesting that you say it happened in the first week, like, because I think that's true of me too. The people I lost them pretty early. So that might be something to come back to when we talk about first week assignments, just to see if there's anything there that we might, you know, so cool. So high retention is awesome. How about you, Jim?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking of positives right now.
Yeah.
My 201 just crashed and burned. I don't even think I'm going to get half of them through. I just had, I don't know, that course. In fact, I've been sitting here today uh, working on grading and reimagining how I want to approach that course. I feel like it's almost like I got to start over.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, the negatives are more on my mind, and actually the gap between my success face to face and my lack of success with my online students is actually the big thing that's on my mind right now. I'm thinking about what does that mean?
Yeah.
for 201 specifically.
Oh, well, for both. I mean, I haven't taught 201 face to face, and definitely one of the things I want to do next year is do that. If I'm going to continue doing 201 online, I also want to have a face to face section because I think that will help me kind of get back in a good place. And then, but yeah, even with the 100, I'm really struck by the gap between my online teaching and my face to face teaching. I'm just a much better face to face teacher.
That's so fascinating because I'm finding this strange thing in the 202 where my face-to-face 202 classes aren't going as smoothly as they used to, but my online 202 are going smoothly. And I actually think that it's the students in the room.
Hmm.
I
Right.
think that it's like there's all this self-selection that's happening, and like stronger students. I found this in 202. I don't know about 201, but stronger students are ending up in my 202 online courses than in my 202 face-to-face courses. And I don't know.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
good, really, right? I mean, that's kind of what we want because yeah, I think you have to have a stronger skill set to do well in an advanced online course. And I think I have to reassess. I think my 201 has become too difficult,
okay.
and I just think the students are overloaded. And I'm trying to think about how to simplify things and pare things down. And this started in the summer, but in the summer I still got a lot of them through. But this semester it's just crash and burn. This reminds me back of my first semesters teaching online, where I had these kind of terrible numbers. So, and the thing is, the few students who are left, they're all acing the course, writing
Yeah.
amazing papers.
Yeah.
So I created a course that was terrific for really talented students, but left everyone else behind, and that sucks.
How about your hybrid? How's that go?
It sounds like it's similar to yours. I think I'm going to get 16 through,
Yeah. Okay. That sounds,
maybe
yeah.
17. I feel like if I had had them 2 days a week, I could have done better. Um, but I learned things there, and I feel like I don't have room in my schedule to do that again next semester, but after in the fall, I want to try to do it again. And we're going to try to move our night to Wednesday night.
Okay.
Meet on Wednesday night. I like Wednesdays because we don't lose any of them.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Those Mondays that we lose just really screwed me over in that hybrid class. You know, when you're running a hybrid class, you're only meeting once a week.
Yeah.
Monday night is your night. You lose 2 Mondays.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. I got you. Yeah.
So I feel like switching that to Wednesday and making some other adjustments, I can build on that.
Yeah.
I feel like the hybrid's going to happen. But the 201 right now, I'm just like, oh.
Got it.
Yeah.
How about you, Curry?
Well, a high point for me was definitely working with a student who early in the semester told me he was having, he was out of his home. He's a single parent, and then trying like couch surfing basically, and then sometimes sleeping at community centers. And I think I shared about him in these discussions earlier in the semester. And it was one of those moments where I got an email from a student asking for accommodations because of, of this situation. And my first instinct was to say, listen, dude, this is an online class. You knew what you were signing up for, like that kind of line, there's certain requirements for this class that are in the syllabus that if you can't meet them, then maybe you should, kind of hop out. But instead of doing that, I just said, okay, can you come to my office and can we kind of talk through what's going on and we can look through the calendar and we can kind of see what we can do. And he responded with gratitude. And since then, he's just been rocking and rolling. Like he's one of the strongest students in the class. He's super smart, super motivated. I don't know. So it's just been a neat experience.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I think, what I think Mary told me. Did you talk? Yeah, I think Mary was explaining that situation, your situation when I met with her last week.
Okay.
I had like one of the top students in my hybrid, my English 100 hybrid.
Yeah.
Worked full time and then had to start working Tuesday nights.
Yeah.
And then asked me like, I don't know, maybe week 7 or something, like, can I shift everything online? Or maybe this happened in your class. Mary was telling me that this sort of thing happened to one of you. And I was like, we just can't do the whole thing online. Like, right. I don't think that'd be fair to the other students. So she actually ended up just dropping the course. But it was like, the only reason was because her work changed in the middle of the semester. Yeah. And you would hope that the online, especially a hybrid or something, I would hope that modality would allow us to pursue, but I just didn't know how, or I didn't know if it was fair,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I have this student. I'm about to grade one of her papers today to figure out whether she's going to make it. She just stopped coming to class, but it's interesting. She might still pass the class for the hybrid.
Okay.
And, she might pull it off. I don't know. It's going to.
So when you said she stopped coming, you mean physically she stopped coming?
Yeah, but she was participating online. She's doing assignments, not all of them, but most of them.
Okay.
And, I don't know. It's going to be interesting if she can pull it off. I award points for class time.
Yeah, that's it.
And they match with the same kind of points for online stuff. So, I don't have any justification to drop her.
I know that's it's so.
But the thing is, I kept contacting her and she refuses to respond to me.
Right.
So like I've emailed her, I've texted her, I followed up with her every way I can imagine, and she refuses to respond. And yet she keeps showing up, turning in about 2/3 of the work. I don't know what to make of the situation.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to pass her if she passes, but
lesson learned, right? Like somehow.
Well, but I think she really hit the wall on the lens assignment.
Okay.
When we got to the lens assignment, I was not putting as much up in the course.
Yeah.
A lot of what was happening online was just following up what we did in class.
Yeah, I started to have to do some like really interesting strategy stuff for the hybrid where it was like maybe by week 8 or so, they got half the points for some of the online stuff, and then they got the remaining half if they showed up with the work, like just little things to try to kind of keep this boat floating,
Yeah.
Wow, that's smart though.
It totally worked, but still, it's like good learning experience.
Yeah. Wow. I'm working with I have a student in my fully on-site class. and one online in the same boat, like just will not communicate with me. The one on site hasn't been coming to class. And is kind of, when in the lens assignment, was frustrated with her grade, saying she had followed all the prompts, but she wasn't in class for when we clarified those things,
Right.
and doesn't communicate very effectively over email. And it's really, yeah, I'm kind of, I don't feel like I have very many useful strategies to offer, or even how to think about that situation. And then online, a student who normally, if I kind of send out that email, I get something back, just won't communicate back. But is turning in work. And actually one time there was, I think it was the first essay, I give video feedback, and I had said something like, your writing style reminds me of like a Rolling Stone review of music, like that kind of like colorful, dramatic. And the response was like this elation, like, I can't believe you like my writing. So like, I know that the person is seeing what I'm putting out there and is benefiting from it, but they're not giving me hardly any response. So it's hard to know what to do.
Yeah.
Hey, Chad, you look like you're muted. I think I can unmute you, maybe.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Sorry, I'm on my phone. I've never done it on my phone before.
Oh, interesting.
So
Cool.
I'm sorry I'm late, guys. It was contractor issues with this remodel thing.
Oh, gotcha. So, Chad, we're just talking about a high point this semester, teaching in the online classroom, and then if you want to, a challenge or a struggle or a low point that you think would, you'd benefit if we collaborated together. There's been lots of challenges shared, few high points.
I feel like I have plenty of those. One thing that was that started off as a low point that turned into a high point and might end on a really good note is about week 3 or 4 in the semester, I created an optional discussion board, and all I asked was, it's kind of like a status check for the class, and I just asked folks, what's confusing, what do you need additional help with? Please feel free to chime in. And one of the students said something to the extent of, I consider myself very tech savvy, I help my family with a lot of stuff, and I find this course to be extremely confusing. So I was like, great. And immediately I just checked in, wrote back and said, hey, what's going on? What can I do? And then I later found out that the student has several mental health issues. And anyways, after I found that out and the student let me know that he was missing certain assignments and wasn't keeping up because of ADHD and other things like that, it's been great. And the student's been late with quite a few assignments this semester, but the student is brilliant. I mean, he's easily one of the top writers in the class. I mean, some of the stuff that he writes and his ideas, and then the writing itself is just amazing stuff. So I've had a great time rethinking him or rediscovering him, and then helping him, extending deadlines, and then encouraging him. And I'm assuming he's going to pass. He's been doing the work, so that's been fun. I think that experience.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I think that's something that happens. Actually, it shouldn't happen as often as it does, but the language you use, rediscovering a student, that I've built some kind of assumptions around, this is a student that's not reading the instructions, or this is a student who's not really bought into the course. And then one little encounter like this one, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, it was just this one barrier. It's just one thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you do those status checks, is that like every week you said, or a couple times a semester?
Couple times a semester, but I think that's, I think in your email to us when you were asking what we're planning, I think for next semester, that's something I want to do more consistently. And I think just in general with my class, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but I really want to have like a consistent elements in my class in terms of deadlines and other aspects of the class, so that from the get-go, it seems like online students, their lives can be very chaotic, right, and inconsistent. And so I want my class to be as consistent and reliable as possible, so that when life happens for them, in their head, they know, well, I still have my due date on Friday or Monday or whatever it is. And so whether that be status checks or just deadlines throughout the semester, the more I can have my due dates, for instance, set up and consistent throughout the semester, they don't have to think about it. They don't have to go, gosh, what is he having us do this week? You know, and it'll be different from last week, because I don't think I did a very good job about that, setting up consistent deadlines.
Yeah, cool. So actually, that's perfect, because Shelly wanted to be here today. She wasn't able to, but she sent me a question she wanted me to pose to the group to talk about. She said that she's working with she's working with 3 due dates, and she's wondering if that's too excessive. And she says that some of the feedback she's received from her students, especially ones who are seasoned online students, is that her class didn't feel like an online class because there's so much emphasis on collaboration. And what they were expecting was this sort of, kind of at your own pace, more isolated kind of, distance, the assumptions we have about distance education, where her class, right, having these 3 due dates really structures experiences around like peer workshops or discussions or other collaborative encounters. But she's worried that maybe that's too heavy-handed or it's micromanaging, right? So she wanted us to talk about, do we think that having something due every other day is too much for an online class? And I think what you're saying, Chad, is that there's actually, so as long as the due dates are consistent, and I would even go farther to say, and the types of things due on those days is consistent. Like, for example, I always know there's a reading due on Tuesdays, and that's always a thing. There's never also a random discussion board on a Tuesday. I think that's manageable. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
well, I can tell you that I'm going in the opposite direction.
Okay.
I've always done 2 days a week, and I've been hearing a lot of criticism about that from students who are struggling in my 202. And when Tony sat in on my class last semester, or evaluated, we were talking about this. I'm asking them to do too many different things, and I want to try to simplify my week so that I'm still having them do significant work, but in a structure that feels less overwhelming, that feels like they're doing fewer things better or fewer things more in depth.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's right for sure. I'm just saying that's the direction I find myself moving, largely because of my interactions with Tony and watching Tony's courses. And I've been talking to Jade and how she does things. And I'm moving in the opposite direction. And I think I was more aware. I don't think I was ever at 3 deadlines, but I've always been at 2. And I want to sort of start thinking about weeks rather than multiple deadlines per week.
Yeah, Tony, what do you think?
Yeah, I think 2 can work too. So I think I explained this last time. I can't remember who I've been speaking to about online. I have 1 major deadline a week, and there's multiple things that are due on that day. But given that I'm responding to students' work every week too, I actually am engaging with students individually on other days through the week as well. So it's Thursday's like the heavy lifter. Everybody knows, okay, all the online stuff happens on Thursday. New stuff is opened on Friday. Like that's built in from the get-go. But then I respond to individual work starting on Friday afternoons, and then I end up like responding to student emails and stuff after that because they ask me a follow-up question or something. So it's almost like there's the organized stuff that happens late in the week, and then there's the one-on-one stuff that happens early in the week. But I don't
love that.
Like I don't explain it like that. It's just kind of what happens.
Right. I love that.
Cool.
So that's a really cool model.
I think just to add a point, one thing I want to do, or two things I really want to do next semester are I want to be able to present to the students early on that in this class there will be pretty much like 12 12 assignments that you need to complete this semester, or 16 assignments. So if I have 4 units, could I break it down into 4 assignments per unit? That includes the major essay, 2 workshops, and what I'm thinking of as these covert assignments that are actually doing the essay before they do the essay. So they would do that as a homework assignment to acquire the concepts, to understand the concepts required for the essay. And then I go, surprise, you just did the essay. And then we would do some kind of optional discussion board stuff. And we'd have the workshops and then the essay. But maybe 4 assignments per unit, right? And then at the beginning of the semester, I can say, this semester we have 16 assignments, okay? And they have that in their head. And maybe I have a visual that allows them to easily check off or picture those 16 assignments. Because I want less surprises, like them thinking, gosh, what else do we have to do this semester, right? And so, and I know that we put that on our syllabi, where we list the assignments and stuff, but I think providing a visual
That's cool.
might be useful. And then the other thing I want to do as far as consistency and giving them a sense of what's ahead in resources is I want to have, you guys have seen my homepage, right, with the 9 little tiles that look like a smartphone. And so I want to have one tile, one icon dedicated to consistent Zoom meetings. In other words, they can just click it, and that takes them to a Google Doc, and that Google Doc has 32 links to Zoom meetings that would take place twice a week, or Zoom meetings that would take place twice a week. And of course they would be set times, so not everybody would be able to meet them, but at the very least it tells the class, this semester, if you happen to be available Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 2 o'clock, you could always count on a Zoom meeting. And so I don't have to do spontaneous Zoom meetings, but I would always have this set schedule for the online students for Zoom meetings. And so I want to have that from the get-go to let them know they can always touch bases. And I'm trying to establish more visual communication early on to improve connections with the students, at critical points later in the semester.
That Zoom idea is awesome. I don't know. Have you ever spoken with Eric Robertson? He does that. So he does Zoom. He does it for his office hours. Sounds similar to the sort of way that you would maybe do it. And what he does is he asks for students to send in issues that they're confused about, or things that they've got to do with a writing or setting up a speech or whatever. And then so they actually end up organizing his office hour. So he gets like 3 or 4 things that come to him within the week, and then he basically just does a super quick 15-minute prep, so that if they check in, he's going to cover all of that stuff, and then they can actually end up asking follow-up questions during the Zoom meeting or whatever the case might be. And so I think he just started it this is the first time he did it in that way this semester, and as far as I could tell, it went really well. And
I think he's using YouTube Live for that.
Is it? Yeah, I can't remember if is he.
Yeah, I don't think he's actually using Zoom for it. I think he's doing
YouTube Live. Yeah.
And I've heard from a couple of his students that they love it.
Yeah.
And one of the variations on that I want to do is for the class, since I'm going to move to this weekly model, one of the ways I'm going to build in a midpoint kind of in the week is I'm going to have synchronous sessions every Monday. 1 hour synchronous session that is going to be mandatory, but you can either be there or do a makeup activity. Mm-hmm. Because I've gotten lots of positive feedback about the synchronous sessions. Students say, even if I'm not there, it just really helps. But urging me to sort of keep it down to an hour. And so that's going to be built into the 1 week cycle. So everything's going to be due Thursdays, but Mondays there's going to be the synchronous moment.
That's cool.
Where people can check in, and doing the synchronous on Monday gives people time to do the makeup activity before the Thursday deadline.
Got it.
Because I can post it Monday night or Tuesday morning, and then that can be part of what they finish for that Thursday deadline.
So just one more sort of observation for this, due dates. And in my English 100 online class, I feel like the due dates are important, especially for organizing this collaboration between students. I think the frustrating thing is, asking students to respond to each other, but there's hardly anything in there to respond to, et cetera. So I think the deadline's really, for a class built around audience and feedback on writing, I think those due dates really help me. But for my English 40 class, I didn't feel like, I wanted there to be collaboration, but I didn't feel like the audience piece was as important because it was more of a content-based course. But what I did do, so I had one due date a week, just Thursday. But what I did was, and this isn't a very good representation because my home screen changes, but what I did was there was always similar assignments. So there was like a quiz to take, a collaborative discussion, a reflection on reading, and then a final kind of summarize the week assignment. Everything was due on Thursday, but on the schedule, I would recommend when to do the other things. So I would say like, recommend take the quiz on Tuesday, recommend take this other thing on Wednesday, right? And that was pretty consistent throughout the week. And I would always remind them in announcements, you want to build a routine for yourself. And I think that was for me, it was a medium that really worked. It was it's published on my homepage. You're recommended to do this at a certain time, but if you didn't do it, you could still get all the points, and if it worked for your schedule, great. I don't need to be in there and micromanage how you do the work. But I think for students who weren't really so thinking directly about how to manage their time, that was a useful prompt, right? Spread this out, because it will build on itself. It'll make the week easier. Just as a final kind of cool. Any other highlights or challenges? I want to move on to talk about week 1 assignments in the next few minutes, but if there's anything else.
Yeah, quick challenge. And I'm still don't know where I am with this in terms of like student to student communication, collaboration, etc.
Yeah.
So 100 is different because it's hybrid, and so we're doing a lot of stuff in the classroom, etc. But for my 200 courses, the last 3 semesters, I do these surveys, and I try to get a feel for how many of them enjoy kind of the collaborative elements that I have and how many don't. And I'm at like this 50-50 every time. And I don't know what to glean from that.
I know.
So I've done that. I do it where it's like, there's optional discussions and, I've tried to do this, but that's just such a maddening position to be in.
I know. I get the same.
Yeah, that could completely be a different discussion. There could be a whole discussion on that, but
totally. But this is important because this is Title V now, right?
I don't quite understand how that. Yeah, I read something, but I don't know. They don't want it to be distance, right? So.
Right, and it used to be regular and effective contact between instructor and student, but now, and I'm pretty sure I know they were talking about it. I think this got actually put through. There's a demand on regular and effective contact between students. So this is definitely something to put on our radar and
what do you guys, on that note, what do you guys think? Because as far as ideas for next semester, I've never done this, but the feature in Canvas that we can use to record audio or video in like for a discussion board.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The little icon that you can just press and then you can record yourself.
Yes.
So Leola and she used that in her communications class, for instance, to do week 1 introductions, and students would click that and share 3 things about themselves. It wasn't a long introduction at all, but it was an existing technology within option within Canvas, and it just allowed students to quickly introduce themselves. As far as the interaction stuff, Tony, that you're talking about, what do you guys think about, rather than doing a lot of like written discussion board stuff, but using that Canvas feature, right, the video feature, to do kind of like video discussions with each other, but really short. Like you're only required to do a 30-second comment, and then maybe if you find something that piques your interest, then respond to it. But we're just asking for really short stuff, but not written, just to have a conversation with each other and to kind of mimic what takes place in the classroom using that feature, and almost maybe even requiring that nothing can be written, that it has to be done video or something like
Jim,
that.
you do that, don't you?
At different points, I'll have them do video responses. So sometimes they do written responses, sometimes they do video, and then sometimes they get to pick.
But they're cool, from what I've heard.
I like them, but I don't. I think Chad's idea of even cutting down the time even further is a good one, because it is really hard to listen to a bunch of people talk for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how much they're listening to each other. There's just something about that online setting where it's hard, but I like that as a variation on the theme. A 30-second block, quick response sounds good. But I'm more interested in pursuing Rick Cassoni's idea. He has the students meet independently in Zoom and post their discussions. And I think that's a really cool possibility. I want to learn more about how Rick does that. And I'm going to pair that up with a drama project I'm doing in 201, where instead of me picking the play, they pick from a list of plays, so they have more freedom to pick which kind of play they want to do. And that is how they pick their groups. And then they have groups organized around their play choice. And I'm thinking of using Zoom as the tool that they do the group work associated with that. So I think I'm thinking along the same lines as Chad, just trying to think of a way to make it more authentically dialogical,
Yeah.
So that's a synchronous session that takes place?
Yeah, they would pick their own time. So it's a group of, say, you three have all decided to look at this play. You meet this week in Zoom for 30 minutes and post a video of you guys meeting and talking in Zoom about the play.
I know that there's also the software that they're adding to Canvas for next semester.
Yeah, what is that? I think Eric's talking about that,
Yeah,
right?
so this is cool. It's video software, but it allows you to annotate it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, imagine what that does for communications when it comes to grading speeches, right? It's basically like margin comments for a speech. But when he was telling me about it, I was thinking about Chad's like rhetorical analysis video stuff, right? Right, where like
that'd be cool.
Actually, he could, as the instructor, you could respond to their rhetorical analysis by just giving margin feedback. But the other thing is, if you had a student present something, then other students could actually write into the video, right? As long as it can exist on YouTube, I think is how it works. Then you can add all of this language around it at different points. Mm-hmm. So that makes for some interesting kind of multimodal ways of thinking about how we can get conversation.
Do you remember what that software is called?
No, Eric's doing a presentation on it.
I saw that. I saw him do he submitted for that for Flex. I was thinking that I'm wondering, is that integrated into Canvas or is that an LTI?
As far as I know, I think it's either will be or has been. I'm not sure. I'm almost positive that when he explained it to me, he was saying it will be available in Canvas. I don't know if that means by next semester or not, but
in Canvas can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like what I'm wondering is it going to show up in that menu when a student opens, to make a post?
Yeah, no, that was my understanding.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
Jim Julius just today told me about this, and I can't remember the name of it either. But you know what I thought about when I heard about this is I've been using I've been using video to give feedback on essays almost exclusively this semester, and I thought this would be a cool way to get students to interact with that feedback. If there was an assignment, so here's your feedback on the essay.
Yeah.
You need to respond at this point, and this point, right? Like build a quiz into my feedback so that they're actually, in their own words, kind of telling me what they're hearing. I think that'd be really powerful. But this also, the student creates a video, a student watches it, and then annotates it and interacts with it. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, that seems like it'd be really cool.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about week one activities. And specifically, I have a couple questions. We don't have to deal with all of these questions, but I like two in particular, maybe just to frame how we talk about week one activities initially. Chad, you emphasize this a lot, that You know, an activity you have an opportunity in a week one activity to introduce students to skills, concepts, technologies, routines in a way that's really sneaky, right? In a way that gets them to think about stuff before they even realize they're thinking about it. So I think that's one, even if we don't start there, if we can connect our week one activities to that kind of function, I think that's cool. And then the other thing I'd like to get to just as a challenge is, can we draw a direct line from something we want our students doing towards the end of this semester, right? Sort of these outcome goals for a semester from a week one activity, right? I think that's a real test of, you know, it's giving them this initial introduction to something. And so looking directly at the end of the semester, which is where we are right now, after we have a conversation, or starting there, either one, I think would just be interesting just to kind of just explore these activities. But I know, Chad, you shared your kind of get to know each other Google Doc. So that might be a good place to start. Just a quick recap, and then if you're doing anything different with that, and then we can kind of go around and talk about week one activities we're using.
Yeah, so I think I've shared previous meetings that I set up a Google Doc pre-semester, just simple table with rows. And all I did was invite students to share a favorite film, TV show, book, song, author, musician, whatever. And then, and that was designed to allow students to share things that they really care about and recognize what they might have in common with each other. It was also designed to get students familiar with simply filling in cells on a Google Doc, right? So that technology. And then in terms of Curry, the idea of possibly introducing something for the end of the semester, week one, it also allowed me to recognize potential texts that they were sharing that would lend itself to the lens assignment at the end of the semester. So after folks had shared a favorite text or recommended something, I then went back and I highlighted a few of them in red, and then I sent an announcement out saying, if your text was highlighted in red, it's possible you can use that for the lens assignment later this semester. They didn't understand what that meant, of course, but I just let them know that they might already be thinking about their text for that assignment. So it satisfies, I think, a number of points.
Awesome.
Pre-semester, but also like week one of the semester.
That's awesome. Cool. Tony, what are some week one activities you're using, and how are you thinking about those at this point?
So one is just kind of like, I think it's Chad's idea, the kind of scavenger hunt type stuff, but it's like scavenger through the syllabus. Make sure you watch the video. One of the things that I try to get them to do is, you want them to watch the videos every week. And so I make sure that from week one in the first writing journal, the responses that they have to provide are coming from the materials they read, the materials they watch, and the syllabus. Just like, that's why this stuff is there. You can't just gloss over that. And that's where I actually hammer them. What's funny is I hammer them in the first response, kind of jokingly or whatever, but my questions are so obvious. Like if you watched the 8-minute video, if you did, you can't miss it. So if they try to speak around it or something, it's such a good opportunity to just be like, come on, man, like take a look at minute 3:30, go to 3:13 and you would have the easy answer, like that sort of stuff. So a lot of it is just kind of getting them used to how the tone of the course, right? And then the other thing, this is speaking to the slow stuff, is my week one assignments in all my courses, it's always, and I do it a little differently in online, but it's always like this analysis of an email. And then I share with them like these old emails from SDSU and just whatever. And it's in the 200 class, it's really an introduction to kind of audience and thinking rhetorically. And so what happens when we get to the slow stuff at the very end of the semester, because I don't talk about slows until the end. And so when I introduce the slows to them, we do this translation exercise where they give me all of the language that we have used throughout the course. And then they give me all of the examples throughout the course of where we were actually doing slow work. And then one of these assignments now in the final project is that they have to choose any assignment throughout the course and justify how they've met the slow in that given assignment.
Hey, Tony, so kind of like a lens slow assignment.
Well, yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, that's I didn't see it like that. So,
Yeah.
but what happens is they always remember the email stuff, right? They're always like, and just not necessarily for the slow stuff, but because it's such an introductory, such an easy way to get them to think about rhetoric or whatever it is. And so, I don't know if it's the best way of doing it, but it's worked pretty well so far. I like the idea of making it even more connected to the slows. Although I'm very careful, I don't want my course to be dictated by the slow itself. I just want the concepts to be floating around forever in different ways. So
Cool. So when do you do that? And would you call it an evaluation of an email, or is that during week 1, or is that during week 1 through 3? When is that?
no, that's week 1. So okay. I don't quite do it in the same way online. So on ground, it's the first day. It is my diagnostic exam.
Gotcha.
I give them this rhetorical situation where it's week 10. They realize that they haven't been doing as well in the course as they would like to. They enjoy the materials in the course, but they've had some challenges, blah, blah, blah. So I set up this challenging situation, and then I ask all of them to write an email to me.
Cool.
And they look at me like I'm crazy. And then they do it, and then I go, okay, now why in the world did I give you that ridiculous diagnostic exam? And then they start talking about like grammar and all this sort of stuff. I just jot down everything. And then from there, we start getting into a conversation about thinking rhetorically and thinking of rhetorical situations and all this sort of stuff. And so I use all of that as an example. It's a way of me introducing the concept, but I also want them to start doing work the first day of class rather than just reading about stuff. And so it's a way of like experiencing the course rather than hearing about what we will be doing day 2.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that there's this immediate engagement with what the course is going to be about.
Yeah. And I don't know if I do that as well in online, but it's just, I give them examples to investigate online, and what happens is they end up figuring out, like, it becomes a conversation about like tone to use in discussion boards and that sort of thing, So I'm getting at the same sort of stuff, but it doesn't quite land the same way as it does on ground. But it's good, just, introduce audience and all that good stuff, so.
Right. Yeah.
My activity that I do to try to get them practicing what we're going to be doing is online, and it's worked pretty well, is I ask them to share a symbolic object that represents them.
Oh, that's cool.
And so since it's 201, right, and one of the things they have to do is use literary devices, a great way, or they have to analyze literary devices. A great way for me is have them, do that, practice it. And they don't even know. I don't tell them that we're doing it. I don't say this is an outcome thing. And then in the follow-up, that's what I try to do with it. But it's so interesting to me because when I say, find a symbolic object, they immediately understand what symbolism means. Yeah, so it's not a student who can't do it. But when I ask them to find a symbol in Toni Morrison, it feels very alien. What could it be? Well, it's the same thing you did with yourself. So it has really helped me when we get that second thing, which is now let's start looking for this in literature, to have that reference point to go back to. And I think it helps them realize, oh yeah, this isn't something I don't do or can't do. It's just, been taught to me as though it's a separate reality.
That's cool.
Cool.
Can I say that it seems like, with a lot of these examples that we're really trending toward bottom-up covert stuff, as opposed to the explicit top-down stuff that then gets applied to something that they're familiar with or care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, like working from working from them into the course rather than dropping the course onto it. Yeah, absolutely, I think.
Yeah.
That's cool. So more of this inductive.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So, and it also it's asking students to construct their own understanding of these concepts before we ever give them a name or have them read the thing that really crystallizes what that concept is and how it could be applied in our coursework. That's really cool. So the week one activity I wanted to share, and I've done a couple different ones, but this is the one I do in my English 40. I did this week. It's a little more practical. This is the initial interface between a brand new student in my course. I make this the first sort of thing in my week one module, but I send it to them in an email. And what it is it's an embedded Google slide. So I've designed it to, sorry, it has some audio that's distracting me that you can't hear. I have it set so that it automatically plays when they open it, right? And the cool thing about an embedded slide is you can put links in it. So it's actually a slideshow, and if you have hyperlinks in a slideshow, you can click on those links. And you won't be able to see it, but I've also embedded a little YouTube video. This is how I can put audio into the Google slide. So my voice will play. So this is kind of how it works. The student gets an email, they click on this thing, it takes them to the slide which plays on its own, they hear me speaking, and I'm just talking through the basic concepts of the course. And I'm telling them, we're gonna study grammar, but the thing about grammar is you're already doing it, right? There are conventions in every form of speech, and so what we're really doing in this class is kind of set our own goals for language, and from there we'll identify conventions. But I want to show you the last screen. So this is the last screen they'll see, and they can hear me read out loud. I say, so are you ready to start? Click a button to begin your exploration in English 40 online. And they can click and go either to learn a little bit more about the course, to read about a weekly routine, which they're going to use every single week. They can go to the kind of initial introduce yourself to the class assignment, or they can start looking at the modules for that first week. And what I like about this is initially this would just be sitting in their email, right? Or be sitting on a tab that they got to from their email. And once they click one of these things, it's going to take them straight into Canvas, and they're going to start learning about, what it takes to be a strong online student in general, what they need for their computer to succeed in my class, like those kinds of expectations. This next one is about, like I said, the weekly routine. So here's where I say, all this stuff is due on Thursdays, but I recommend you complete them on other days, and there's a little explanation for why. And then, or they can go to the module itself and kind of begin, see how the whole week is laid out and begin sort of participating. For me, as like a week one activity, I feel like it's doing those, it's doing two things. At first, it's landing them from where they are out in the world, an email or wherever they get this, into my course, right, with those links. And then there's a bit of a corridor they go through, right, because how they land in the course is telling them about the course and telling them what my expectations are, what they need to do to prepare. And then those are things they're using throughout the semester, right? The routine never changes. The tools will always be consistent. And that kind of concept of we construct, language is something constructed between two humans, and then it's a matter of clear communication. That's how we frame grammar in this course. That's a concept we revisit throughout. And so
they have 4 choices, right?
Right.
So, but is there one choice that, in other words, so all of them can start anywhere, but at some point you want them to see all 4. Is that?
Yeah, that's a good point. So when they go to, let's see, so the actual module, let's see. Okay, let me just go there. Right. If they miss, so if they land in Canvas and miss part of it, the guide is the first thing they'll see. So they have a chance to see those 4 options again.
Okay.
But I think it's true that a student could miss one of them because there's 4. That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, I actually really like this choice embedded, but I'm just trying to get and maybe they don't need to start in the same spot. I don't know. I'm just. Yeah.
All right, I got to run, guys. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I got to go pick up a child at 2:30.
Sweet. Thanks, Jim.
The whole time we were talking, I was frantically jotting down my reimaginings for my 201 course. The conversation just got me thinking about all these things. So this is really, really helpful. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Awesome. Take care.
Thanks, Jim.
Because you guys are doing 100s right now. So you guys are actually introducing students in many cases to the online experience. I can't tell you how different the 200 is. Like, I imagine, I don't know for sure, but I think probably at least 15 out of the 21 students in the room are so familiar with online. I mean, like, to the extent that they've had, 6 online courses before. And so I think that's a radically different audience too,
Yeah, totally.
And that's why, Tony, that's why I feel more so than ever now that this is going to be the third time I'm going to teach online. That's why I really want to instill a sense of consistency early on with regard to due dates, weekly Zoom sessions, how many assignments there will be in the class, because it's a new world, I feel like, for a lot of 100 online students. And so if I can be more consistent and stable, then they can go explore and familiarize themselves and get accustomed and adapt, but yeah, because they're new students.
Yes. I think if you haven't already, I recommend that you guys try. Have you, like, Chad, have you ever done a 201 or 200 or a 202 online?
No.
Yeah, and I haven't either.
I think it's like, it's funny because I'm doing this hybrid 100 and I have real problems with it, not just because it's hybrid, but also because of the student demographic. It's just like,
right.
I don't know. A part of me is like, I almost feel like we should have more 200 offerings online than 100.
Huh.
Because I think there's something to be said for students learning to be students. Of course, they'd have to learn that stuff somewhere. It's like, maybe that's not fair because you're outsourcing it to other departments.
I hear what you're saying, though. I hear what you're saying, that the 100 online presents an additional challenge to 100 level students.
Well, it presents an additional challenge to the students, and it presents a myriad of new challenges to the instructor.
Right.
I mean, that speaks to the challenges of 100 in general, I think, because as far as I'm concerned, 100, we're not just teaching the 100 content, we're teaching so many students about how to be students, how to navigate the system, etc. I mean, so instructors are tasked with far more than just what the core might articulate.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I don't know, can you guys see distinctions now in your 100 populations ever since the change?
I yeah.
I do for sure. And
I do. Yeah.
And it's always, sometimes it's not big. It's like there's 2 clear students in here who never would have been in here. Mm-hmm. But that can be, that can radically change the dynamic of a room, So, mm-hmm. Yeah. And so there are also now new students in our online courses.
Right. Yep.
Well, for instance, I had, Curry, I emailed you about this. I had a student email me who just completed English 49 and is now recommended to take English 100. Okay, so in my head, I'm thinking English 49 student, and the student was inquiring about my online 100. Okay,
right.
That, to me, that leap is huge, right? And so I tried to craft a diplomatic email in which I said, I'm not sure how much experience you have with online courses. When I think about a student wrapping up 49, I think maybe a 152 would be a great fit given the support, right? And then I said the on-ground class and that HSE in particular, there's quite a bit of support, whereas the online environment has, I said, significantly less. And so those are the kinds of things that came up, and I was asking Curry, like, what should I do, basically? And Curry, he thankfully provided me with a link to, what was it, to testing, Curry? Or what, is that what you sent me?
Well, no, so a link to the testing office, because that's where that student can go to have that prereq cleared.
That's
if
right.
they go through the self-placement. Yeah. But the other, did I send you, I think I also sent you a link to the OEI's online readiness modules.
I think so.
I think so. Because that's something that I also use in my English 100 class for their week 1 activity. So their week, I'll say really quickly, I use Stephen Johnson's Where Good Ideas Come From. That's the text for our online class. And his first chapter, his argument is about it's the environment you put yourself in that is either conducive to innovation or it's stifling of innovation. Like that's the first kind of thing we need to think about when we think about where good ideas come from. And so their week one activity is, I say, what is your learning environment? What is your classroom for this class? And I say, don't just include Canvas. It's also the desk you're sitting in, the house, the room where that desk is, the house where that room is, what's outside, if you're at a Starbucks, etc. And so their diagnostic essay is, here's the environment I'm placing myself in to be a writer and a reader this semester, and kind of based on this chapter, here's how it will help me or here's how it will harm me, or distract me. And that's a really powerful assignment, I think, because it gets them thinking about, not just the concepts we're going to be talking about, but themselves as a student in an online class. And what I've noticed, what I ask them to do is also to use those readiness modules and to, because they're designed to expose something about a student, a strength or maybe a limitation that may make them a good fit or not a good fit for online learning. And even my seasoned online students will say, I never thought of this before, or like, that was kind of interesting the way they, so they're pretty cool in terms of, preparing students. But I think the other thing that makes me think of this is to Tony's point, a student in the 200 level class now probably doesn't need those modules. And if they've encountered that somewhere else, then that's a bit dreary to have to go back through them. So this is something institutionally, I think, we need to talk about, right? How to prepare students for online learning. And then we can think of a week one assignment that, right, especially students that are not traditionally finding their way into our 100 classes who now are, a week one assignment that's really focused on them to introduce them to the course. Cool. Sorry, I droned on for a long time there.
No, you reminded me of just little things like if I essential technologies in my online class, and to what extent am I properly preparing students for the semester by teaching them those essential technologies. So Google Docs, Google Slides would be clear examples of that, and things that I want them to do that are, to me, so simple, right? So for instance, post a link to your Google Doc, an active link to your Google Doc, and make sure that it's set to comment mode, okay? Yeah. Right. Really easy stuff, right?
Right.
But that can be a make or break thing. In other words, if we don't do it for the first week, but we need that throughout the semester, so they need to post drafts on the discussion board. And by posting drafts, I mean they post links to their Google Doc, for instance, right? And we haven't set them up for that early on. That's kind of like, I can't get past level 1 of this game that's supposed to be
totally
relatively doable, right?
Right.
And so, so I'm thinking of that stuff, like things that I know they're going to need, but maybe I didn't prepare them the way I should have for that,
Yeah. I'm going to use that analogy. So a week 1 activity that's a level 1 teach you how to play this game.
Yeah.
And that's especially for English 100 and English 40. What I'm finding about my English 40 class, we won't talk about this from at all, but these are students that are intimidated to take a 100 class. So I'm finding that English 40 is actually a gateway to English 100. And that's, I've been talking about that all semester long. Like, you're doing great. This is really interesting. You would do so well in an English 100. I didn't expect that to be the case. I thought English 40 was going to be, I didn't know what it was going to be, but I didn't think it was going to be, I'm taking this because I'm avoiding that one. Anyway.
Interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
So, but because wasn't it originally like sold to pre-teachers and the rest of it as well? Like, are you finding that population in there or no?
Yeah. But I'm also finding, folks who have a job and they just were like promoted and now they're in charge of writing the weekly newsletter. And they're like, I want to feel confident when I do this, So there's a real mix in English 40. But I think for the college student that's starting out, most of them are in that boat. Like, I'm really intimidated by English. I'm going to start here, which is,
Curry, in that class, are they putting together ideas, or is it more just looking at grammar and just writing clearly, I guess?
No, it's
But when I say putting together ideas, are they putting together paragraphs and kind of supporting a claim or something like that? Or
they
or
are
both?
right. They're doing it without being sort of required to do that,
Oh,
um,
okay.
because that we have these discussions. I started the class with this sort of, what is grammar and how does it work, and really tried to reframe it. This last week, or not this week, but the week last week, I want to show you really quickly. I found 3 TED Talks, each one sort of juxtaposing how language works. And so this one by Scott is a spoken word, and she's talking about proper English in the classroom, proper English in her household, and then proper English in the neighborhood, and defines each as its own discourse. McWhorton, who's talking about texting as not writing, it's actually, he calls it fingered speech.
Yeah.
And then Stephen Fry, who's talking about stop being such a pedant, pedantic about language and kind of just enjoy it. This was their kind of like their final for the class, basically, in terms of discussion. They had to pick one and sort of respond to it. But the final project for the class is they're building their own handbook, and they have to introduce the handbook with one of these positions, and it lends itself to exposition. And so we've never talked about claims, we've never talked about support, but that's what they're doing in these. And so it's real easy for me to say, man, you rocked this. This is what English 100 is going to ask you to do. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So that reminds me, Curry, of how for my first assignment, where the rhetorical analysis, where they write the letter, but now they do a video analysis of the letter.
Right.
So for the video analysis materials that I provide, right, I give them a sample outline of a rhetorical analysis, and that sample outline utilizes a paragraph model, the test model that I use. But I don't make it a requirement that they use it. I'm simply using it as an example of how I'm structuring it, and then as a result, many of the students mimic what I'm doing in that way.
I remember that.
And then I formalize it. I formalize it in the next unit, where then I call attention to it, and I make it one of the requirements and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very sneaky of you and very, very effective. Yeah, awesome.
But I hear a lot of the conversation that I'm hearing today, I feel like, and I don't know if we need to operate that way more so in an online setting, or if we're trending that way, but I just feel like a lot of the stuff I'm hearing today is I'm not really telling them what I'm doing, and then we're discovering it, or I'm calling attention to it later, or I'm embedding it early. So, kind of like the idea of hiding a gun in fiction, or sometimes I describe it as planting a seed. We do these things early, and then suddenly they make a more pronounced appearance later on in some more meaningful way. It gets recontextualized, right?
Yep, totally. I like that.
I love that kind of teaching. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I got to go pick up my kids too. So thank you so much for hanging out during finals week. This was really good.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for everything.
Cool.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Catch you later.